Number 20, Part A. This series is vastly different from the comics. The characters are younger and act more like roommates than a family. It has an anime-inspired look, and the stakes are never very high. But despite these differences, this is still probably the best adaptation of the famous quartet. I really loved this read. Instead of making him as geeky as possible, they portray him as this awkward, charming nerd who really cares about people. The characterization on the Thing was also very strong. The series overall isn't all that memorable. The villains and adventures left little impact on me. But the one episode I do remember liking a lot is when the Skrulls pose as the Fantastic Four's neighbors. Even though the characters work best when they're having impossibly fantastic adventures, this is still a good show. The animation style is unique for superheroes, and it shows a great respect to a good franchise. Number 20, Part B. Like World's Greatest Heroes, the new animated series takes a very different approach to classic characters. The CGI in this series is pretty good, and Spidey as such a visual character looks great with the assistance of computer animation. The show was intended for older audiences, and it does focus a lot on college-age relationships, alludes to mature themes, and gets pretty dark. Not to give anything away, but the series finale goes darker than any cartoon on this list, and it makes quite the impact. The one downside to this series is that it doesn't make use of Spidey's universe. I think this is because they tried to tie it into the movies and didn't want to use any of those villains. But the original villains they create, while serviceable, are very unmemorable. There are no Harley Quinns. And the comic book villains they do use are in some cases too different to be recognizable. Since this show is targeted towards young adults, the series strays from using Spidey's adult supporting cast. So they only have Jameson in a few very unmemorable appearances, and they don't use Aunt May at all, which is unforgivable because she is vital to Spider-Man's story. But all those flaws aside, this is a unique take for a different audience that ended up working as a series. Number 19. There is one really good reason this cartoon made the list.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out.
Best theme song ever. Next cartoon.
Listen, bud, he's got radioactive blood.
Number 18. No matter how corny and sometimes bad this cartoon got, I've never met anybody who didn't really enjoy it. And I'm the same way. It's far from perfect, but I like it a lot. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Virgil Hawkins is a very likable hero. He has cool powers, a great personality, neat costume, and a solid friendship. My favorite part of this show was the dad. Parents are almost always missing in superhero fiction, so it was nice to see that this dad was very involved and had a good dynamic with his son. Most fathers in children entertainment are portrayed as incompetent goofballs, but Virgil's dad is up there with the best of TV dads. And the fact he was a single father really added a lot of drama to the show. None of the villains will ever be iconic. It featured guest appearances from the likes of Shaq and Lil Romeo, and one episode even ended with a PSA from dyslexic anti-hero, the Rubber Band Man. But even with a lot of flaws, this is a show I would gladly choose to watch again. Number 17. The previous two X-Men cartoons were very fan-friendly, both featuring a lot of characters from the comics. But this show takes fan-friendly to an almost dangerous level. Practically everyone in the expansive X-Men universe is shown on this series. As a huge X-Men fan, I love the premise of present-day X-Men trying to stop Days of the Future Past. And the twist at the end of the show is that by stopping that timeline, they've created the Age of Apocalypse. The issue of hate is well represented on the show. Humans are a threat in the form of the MRD, and mutant supremacy is strongly represented with Genosha and the Brotherhood. Those are two large parts of the X-Men mythos that are rarely done well. A lot of the characters are good. This is a great Wolverine, great Magneto, great Beast, and I love the interpretation of Forge as a nerdy teenager. However, this Storm is dull and pointless, and this is Cyclops at his worst, being completely defined by Jean. I've only seen a few episodes. I never had Nicktoons, and it hasn't been an easy find online. But it's a pretty awesome show. It has appealing animation and a lot of great qualities. However, it seems to lack the heart and strong characterization of the other X-Men cartoons. I really feel that if this series had survived past one season, it would have grown to be one of the best X-Men adaptations ever. It's very tightly plotted and very ambitious, but as it exists right now, it's just an interesting 26 episodes. Number 16. I didn't grow up with these turtles. I was born in 1991, and by the time I was old enough to be interested in the show, the craze was dying down and the series was off the air. However, it seems like everybody else I know has a place in their heart for this show. Not just a little place, but the entire heart and most of their arteries. And it's easy to see why. It's a fun show. Even though the characterizations are weak and the animation isn't great, it is good camp. And superheroes really lend themselves well to camp. This series features it at its best. Again, I don't have the same fond memories as a lot of the series fans, but I recognize the passion that many had for this full-blown phenomenon, and I really respect that. Number 15. I love this show. I would call it a guilty pleasure, but I'm not ashamed of it. It's one of my favorites. Just like Ninja Turtles, this is very good camp. I love Spidey's one-liners, I love the bickering among the Spider Friends, and there's just something about this version of Iceman that I really like. The series was rerunning on ABC Family when I was first showing an interest in superheroes, and it was a great introduction to the Marvel Universe. The episode I really like is, surprisingly, the Fantastic Mr. Frump. I find something really tragic about an old man gaining superpowers and feeling like a somebody for the first time in his life. I personally would love to see the comics tackle that idea. Sure, it's not that great, but it's as good of a superhero cartoon as you'll find before 1992. And did I mention that Aunt May has a cute little dog named Lion who often saves the day?